Hi everyone. So there has been some pretty interesting development lately in Path of Exile 2 ahead of the early access launch, which is that some people have received media early access to the full game, as far as we can tell. So this has caused quite some, stir up and drama in the community, and I felt like I should maybe weigh in on this a little bit as well. Usually I'm not like a drama farming YouTuber or something like that, but it has come up quite often on my stream, on comments, on like even the podcast I watched earlier with Scissorin, for example. They talked about that, and it was just kind of like a pretty huge deal here across the board in like the more engaged audience. We see this here, a lot of like content creators weighed in on this as well. You see the basically like every single name that you know from like YouTube or Twitch here in the comment section as well. So it has been a fairly big topic. So what actually happened? Well, GG has given this media early access to some outlets. This comes really as no surprise to me. I gotta say, this is pretty commonplace, I guess, all over the industry. And for example, myself and many other people played Vessel of Hatred in Diablo 4 ahead of time, for example, or closed beta or whatever, these kind of things. So this just happens pretty frequently. Now, in the case of Path of Exile, though, this usually doesn't really happen, at least in the sense that they try to preserve the competitive spirit, both for like the content creator sphere, I guess, and also for like the game itself in terms of races and having any kind of like knowledge advantage, which is very big in this game. So in the past, usually, the beta testing was kind of like very small and confined. And for example, for Path of Exile 2, it seems like there's actually no real, like one of the big content creators at least, involved in any of this stuff. And also, as we can see in this post here, for example, that they have later released, they are actually not allowing people to produce guides with this knowledge that they acquire, which just so happens. So there was this video here by Factor Life that I actually watched the other day before it was taken down from YouTube because they understood they made a mistake. Yeah, that definitely showed off, a little bit more than a review. And we also saw, for example, these kind of updates here on the website. So why is that a problem, really? I guess a lot of people are really hyped to see like, any kind of information coming out, including myself. I've just been kind of sitting here, digging through everything, watching everything, trying to prepare myself and, trying to make guides for you guys as well with all of the knowledge that I can gather. And I can obviously understand a lot of people are upset if some people get the access and some people don't. The same thing has happened, for example, in Diablo 4, where some people get access, I was included, for example, and other people don't. And it kind of sucks for those people that do not get this access. So at least on a content creator perspective, there's obviously, tension there, I guess. And personally, I actually would prefer if this was not the case. And I'm actually very happy to see that GG seems to not be doing this, at least on a large scale with like content creators. So to make this absolutely clear, I really dislike this early access stuff that is actually happening. I would much prefer if we didn't have betas, PTRs, any kind of like secret early access and these kind of things. And personally, I would much rather prefer if just everyone explores the game together, because the first time that you touch the game together with the entire community, this is only like a one-time chance. This is like, this only happens once ever for that game, right? And this is exactly what people try to preserve so much. It's probably not even so much the competitive aspect here with like a race going on or so. This is the start of early access. We expect things to be wonky, buggy, servers on fire and so on. So in terms of like trying to make like a real race out of it or something like that, yeah, not really, I guess. This is going to come later, I suppose, when like the actual 1.0 launch happens, for example. I expect that to be a pretty big thing then. But for now, I don't really think it's like even that much about like the racing, for example. But at least on the content creator side of things, yeah, people can very easily get upset about this. So speaking as someone who has greatly profited from this in the past, let's say, in like, for example, Diablo, I actually would prefer if that was not the case. I think it would be nice if like everyone was on even ground, all the creators are, on the same level and that have the same chances to like get to play the game. And okay, some people maybe like, had a few hours at like, some of the events or something. I also played, for example, Path of Exile a little bit at Gamescom, but I was physically present and I played like, I don't know, 5 hours or something. And this doesn't really give me like a huge competitive edge or something, I believe. But, obviously it is a bit different when people can sit at home and play all day and actually prepare all this kind of stuff. And also it is way closer to the actual launch that we are expecting in just a few days from now. As I mentioned, I think it's also just worth preserving this whole like, part of the exploration, and it would really suck if like in the next days we actually have like data mines popping up, or some more leaks about like what all the bosses look like, or what every ascendancy node looks like, and these kind of things. People are really dying for that information, but on the other hand, I think it's also really cool to have this whole like tension of, okay, we know a little bit what is going on, we don't know just enough to kind of understand how the game functions and what kind of choices we should be making, or what we want to go for. If you look at this, for example, some of the teasers that GG has given out for example, the ascendancy nodes, and that we have seen in like various clips and stuff like that when they have previewed the game, and also what other content creators gathered at some point. But we just don't know the full picture, and the same is true for like basically anything, the skills, the passive tree, and the items, the uniques. And I just really love that part. I love jumping in, and as I said, it can only happen once. Now, I do understand that there would also be people that would point the finger here now and say, yeah, but you are part of the problem, Woody. Vessel of Hatred just came out, you played it before, you had all the guides already on launch, the entire game was solved, and there's no discovery. And yeah, I get it, right? But this is just what you have to do if you get the early access. I didn't ask for it, really. Like, they kind of surprised us and said, hey, we're doing this, and they invited people basically. But I would prefer, as I said, like that no one gets this kind of early access. But of course, when you get it, you do have to do that, and it also kind of puts you in a weird spot as a content creator, where it's like, I want to stream and I want to explore the game with everyone else, but then I also know things that I'm not allowed to talk about, and I can't really have like a genuine first time reaction to it. For example, when I see it on the stream or something like that, I can't be surprised about anything, and it's just kind of also weird, like the situation, like for everyone basically. So this whole like NDAs, and there's like secret beta and secret early access, and then you can create guides on that, and everyone will always just kind of feel a bit weird in relation to each other. So I would rather not have anything. But of course, no one in the right mind would say no to this if offered, for example, because then you just give up this entire advantage that someone else is going to use basically against you. If you think about the content creator sphere, and people having like equal access or unequal access to information, then someone is going to make that guide instead of you anyway. So the information will be out there, and all you do is lose for it. So it's like a really bad position to be in, to be honest. And I think one person that we have to be thankful for this is probably Ciceran, because he has actually expressed this as well. So as I mentioned, I was watching this podcast here, for example, the Drop Frames podcast earlier. There were a few big names out here, including this, and he actually talked about this, that he also like just is kind of like on the same page here with just no one gets early access. And I think he has also like maybe actively like reached out to GG to tell them to not give everyone access, and this is eventually what they have done. I'm not sure if that's because of this, but at least he seems to be like a proponent of this as well. So I do have to say that is very nice to see. And they also talked about, for example, some other incidents in the past. So you might not know about this, but some weeks ago, there was this so-called streamer queue incident, which was also a huge debacle, where basically a league launched and the servers were clogged up thanks to some like database problems they had or something like that. And then they fast forwarded the queue of people that were like on a short list, basically. Like a lot of people were sitting there for hours, and then they would DC and then will sit in the queue for hours again. And basically like some people on a list would just instantly get through the queue, and that were mostly the streamers. That was like obviously a huge outrage. And I think they will never do that again. But this is also one of those other cases where I think, everyone should suffer the same. We know that the servers are going to be on fire, and maybe no one gets to play the entire weekend. And I mean, that's just how it works. That's also part of the charm of it, I feel. And at least personally, I would also not really appreciate like this kind of privilege, because it would just kind of make me feel really weird about myself, about like, my privilege basically. And I would not feel like that. I want to see the game, just like everyone else, despite me kind of like trying to soak up all the information that is out there, going through everything I can find. I like, kind of building yes, anticipation with that for myself. But on the other hand, I don't want to get spoiled, and I also don't want to have this kind of special treatment as a streamer, just because there's, thousands of people sitting there with me on my stream and, just looking at the queue. And this is just the experience that happens, I guess. And this is what it is. I suppose another point to add in this conversation is also that it can be quite beneficial for the game publisher to give early access to people just for the purpose of improving the game. So for example, here are some of those feedback documents that I have written over the years for example, Diablo 3 or later Diablo 4. I've been doing this routinely for at least half a decade or so, just kind of like, getting early access or playing a beta or playing a PTR and, trying out a new patch. And of course, people like myself that have a very deep understanding of these type of games, understand the balance, understand the issues, and also have this connection to the larger community to understand what people are actually happy or unhappy with, can be quite helpful for developers to channel the feedback. And there are certainly many cases of patch notes that I can point my finger to and say, yep, that was me. That was, something that I really insisted on. I really brought up to the devs. And sometimes I actually do what I suggest. And I'm not saying this to boast that, I can create a better game than them or something like that. It's still up to the devs to decide what to include in the end. But I see myself as someone who channels the combined feedback of the community. And I don't necessarily just, introduce or give suggestions, at least, of feedback that I think would be the perfect game for myself. I understand that, for example, I'm a much more try-hard player than most other people that watch my content, and of course I don't want to, for example, transform, let's say, Diablo 4 into like a super try-hard experience because of that. I can enjoy the game, and I can also enjoy PoE 2 with what will potentially be some things that I will not perfectly like, and I would maybe prefer it another way, but I understand that it's just the best for the game. So this is not about being selfish as a content creator and using my reach and my voice to shape the game exactly to my liking. It's more that I think, the games can improve, and obviously ARPGs are some of the most complicated games out there. There's a lot of very minute details, balancing, and little things that can really make a big difference. So sometimes it can be really hard for developers to really get the full picture, even if they seek out feedback from public sources, and especially in the case of untested territory of new content coming out that no one has really seen yet in a deep dive. There are always things that change and that they can adjust. So on that side, I can also understand, for example, GG giving people early access that can actually, use this to their advantage as, like, let's say, like a racing advantage or like, a content creation perspective, let's say. But on the other hand, it's also really nice that it seems like they have not really done it. And this is a big point for me as well. Like if they do this, then, similar to Diablo 4, for example, where a lot of the content creators actually did get access, and then they did provide their own feedback, like myself, then yeah, this can really help shape the game. But in the case of GG, it seems like they are just kind of waiting until people get their hands on it, and they already know in advance, okay, some stuff will be broken, some stuff will be OP or, really weak or something. And it doesn't really matter all too much, because I also expect that the general quality level of Path of Exile 2 is going to be very high, and there's going to be not too many, like, game-breaking bugs or, insane balance issues outside of, maybe some broken stuff. And this is probably not going to be another Diablo 4, where we have, let's say, Spiritborn that does literally 1,000,000 times more damage than other classes. GTG just seems way more prepared than, for example, Blizzard in tackling those kind of issues when they come up. And they've also said so in some of the interviews that Jonathan has given, where he mentioned that, some things, will probably be broken, and they will definitely keep an eye on it. They will fix those things early and quickly. So I expect we're going to see probably lots of little hotfixes in the first weeks of the early access launch. And maybe this kind of feedback around that, for example, Blizzard is getting with betas and such, is not even necessary. And with all that being said, I want to go back to this post here from the Path of Exile X account, where they have talked about the situation a little bit, and they actually try to be very transparent. And this is also just why I think that GG is just such a good company. They have really earned their respect. I have been playing Path of Exile over the years. You know, the first time I started Path of Exile was, I think, something like 7 years ago or so. So it has been a while. I've played the game quite a lot, just have not really produced all too much, especially YouTube content for it. And especially lately in like the D4 times, I've not really just enjoyed PoE that much anymore, and I was mostly in PoE 2 waiting room as well as many other people. GGG always has my respect for, you know, showing this kind of transparency in a post like this. I don't really blame GGG for this at all. I think this was totally not on them. No matter what they said in their contract or something, I think it should have been extremely clear for, you know, especially people that do this stuff all the time, you know. Like, I know these NDAs as well. I have done this 1,000 times myself, and I know exactly that certain things can be said and certain things cannot be said. And if there are gray lines, some people, you know, try to abuse that maybe, but they should know better, I would say. And this is not a blame that I can put on GGG. If anything, my appreciation for the company has grown quite a lot lately, especially after watching a lot of the interviews that Jonathan Rogers, the game director for Path of Exile 2, has given. And it's just quite enjoyable to listen to him. I've also met him actually in real life. I also had my own interview like a year ago or something like that to talk about Path of Exile 2 quite ahead of time. He's just very enjoyable. It's just really nice to see like how they stand their ground and also how transparent they are. And for example, they've also been saying that, you know, they know that they're gonna have server issues, and this is probably not just to excuse the fact, but also just, you know, they probably didn't expect to have this kind of hype wave that is kind of like, you know, flooding everything right now. And it seems like everyone is going to get washed into the Path of Exile section next Friday. And of course, you know, this is just going to bring the service to the knees. That's just how that works. You know, you can't really blame them for that either, I guess. In any case, I don't want to drag out this video too much, so I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents since a lot of people asked me, and this was kind of like a big discussion point in the last day or two. So here it is. Let me know what you think about it. Maybe you agree with me, maybe not, or what is your like idea, or like maybe you just don't really care. You just want to get all the info leaked as much as possible. I don't know how you guys feel about it exactly, but this is how I feel at least. So hope you enjoyed my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys next time.